Hold on, it's mine. Now you're up.
We'll call the meeting to order. Proof notification. Agenda approval, we've got a couple changes here to the agenda. We're going to move item number 9 up after number 4 and scratch items 5 and 6, postponed until March 18th. So we got a couple less, so it looks like we'll be at.
Wait, Mark, can you make sure you're
Yeah, so we'll be at 15-point agenda, it looks like. Can I get a motion to approve? Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Previous meeting minutes, any corrections or?
Mr. Chair, if I can have you look in your committee folder, there is a second one that we put in there. It's the redacted version as well of February 18th with the closed session. So it has kind of the motions to go in, motions to come out. The unredacted version, I believe, was sent to you, Mr. Chair, from Sean Murphy Lopez as well. So you're going to be approving this with the mindset that the redactions then will also be filed with the county clerk. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I get a motion to approve the previous meetings minutes.
Gentis, I move.
Second?
Second.
Dave was second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna skip down to number 9. Arpa funds request for local match on broadband grant with Laval Telephone Co-op.
Okay, Mr. Chair, looking today for possible motion to recommend resolution of the county board to partner with Laval Telephone in entering into an agreement to partially fund the proposed fiber to home broadband project in Rockridge, Willow, Richland Center, Ithaca Townships in the amount of $590,000 in utilizing funds from the American Rescue Plan Act. We have representatives here from Laval Telephone. I can kind of pull up the map here so that folks can reference it, and then I think it might be best described by gentlemen here to represent.
No, you have to make that.
Yeah.
So this grant round. Arpa round. Looking to partner with public people in order to get this done. Hello? Okay, better. Okay. So that's why we're coming to you guys for money on this again. And you guys got any questions as far as the build out, details, any of that? It's going to be 120 miles of varied fiber serving approximately 460 subs. Total cost is going to be around 5.8 million. We're going to look to the PSC for 80%. We're going to look to you guys for 10, and we're going to put the other 10 in.
And this is all underneath, we'd recently also had, I think, Senator Markline and Assemblyman Kurtz had pushed out this program from the state saying this was money that was coming down from the state. This is all the same type of a program, correct?
Yep.
Supervisor, so you do understand, and forward to our one tracker here from, one second here, from our allocations for ARPA funds. Just a second here to let this pull up. Does pull up. Bear with me. Open. And there we go. Okay. back to share, so you can see where we're at with our appropriations for ARPA funds. So initially, we had taken action to take 20% of our ARPA funds and appropriate towards water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. At one time, I think we had a $200,000 project with Laval that we were looking at, but then the funding didn't come through from the state.
Correct, we never got that grant, yep.
That didn't work out. We currently have obligation right now with a broadband survey that we had entered into an agreement with UW Extension to do follow-up survey work following the efforts by Prosperity Southwest. And we have obligations following the actual grant confirmation from the federal government on and through the FAA process for the drainage ditch down on the Tri-County Airport. So those are two that are in the queue right now that we kind of have appropriated, but expenditures have not hit. For a financial impact, again, of a $590,000 expenditure, we designated $670,000 with our consideration for approximately $138,000 that's committed. That leaves $532,000. This puts us a little on an overage for that piece of the pie, if you will, of about $57,000. That'll have to come then from a lost revenue or impact in one of our other appropriations, one of our other pieces of the pie, if you will.
590,000.
So as your administrator, again, too, this is certainly something that the legislation itself was designed to impact. It is a goal that you have as a county at the same time as we approach our financial planning. And we know that we have gaps approaching into the next year and years to follow. This would be less revenues that can be used to extend the lives of mandated services as a potential as well. Which would be my thoughts on it. Decision today, though, would have to be made because we're going to have to hit resolution if it's affirmed by the county board on the 16th or on the 15th to get it to you folks.
Correct,
for a
we'll need
quick
to
turnaround
sign
on the 7th.
PPP up so you can apply that to our grant documentation, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Guess what's your guys' pleasure here? What do we want?
Yup, that turquoise with the blue lines in it, that's everything that we're gonna expand into. The stuff in the green is where we already have fiber. The stuff in the pink is where we already have fiber. The stuff in the blue and yellow is where we already have it or are going to build it within the year.
How much is the county, if you guys got fiber in?
Probably now I would say 65 to 70%. With this, it would be almost 90% because all we'd have left is to the east of 58 and then down towards Gotham, and then we'd fill in the whole works.
Mr. Chair, it's not just you, though. You mean all of the broadband providers have? Talking about?
No, it'd be Laval Telephone and Richland Grant Telephone and Tech.com. We're all
Yes, the
together,
three.
kind of.
Yeah,
We're all
okay.
together, kind of. So yes, it would be, yep, just us three covering it.
But I have a question for the administrator. At the last meeting, we talked about how we were going to try to bridge the gap, so to speak, with some of the ARPA funds. We spend it all on this, we won't be able to do that, correct?
Gaps are going to exist whether or not you spend this or not. It's just you're going to have bigger gaps. You're going to have less, 590,000 less options to, again, in my vision, probably extend the relationship that you have with non-mandated services, or to extend, I mean, to elongate how long you have to do a reduction to mandated services with our other goals in mind. Again, our goals of what we've talked about with compensations and
But broadband expansion is certainly one of our greatest priorities. So we need to do this. We have the resolution prepared. We'll make the motion that we go ahead with this.
Motion, can we get a second?
Administrator, I have a question.
Go ahead.
We're $57,000 short, is that right, Clint?
For that piece of the pie, yes, from what we initially took action on to appropriate for water, sewer, broadband infrastructure.
And what, is there anything else in AARP that we're still gonna spend or have allocated that we should have more money? I'm a little confused.
This is right now, this breakdown here shows the pie slices and how we've appropriated it by category, the current appropriations, and you'll see like expenditures. So an example on negative economic impacts underneath that language was the child education grant. We took action to appropriate essentially 10% of that towards that initiative. We've already appropriated and kind of expended those. They've been pushed out to our providers. So with our other pieces of the pie that we have in place, again, we're talking kind of approved on the big slices in this column, what we've currently appropriated by action of resolution or kind of commitment, what is currently spent there, running balance then for the pieces of the pie.
Is this on here that I can look at it on my iPad?
It is, Linda. It's underneath item 11D.
All right, we have a motion and a second. More discussion?
I'd like to see what.
Yes.
So Clint, one of the potential possibilities would be reducing what we have allocated to the lost revenue column to offset this.
That's how I'd visualize it. It's
Okay.
going to have to come from there or one of the other slices in the pies.
Because that's the biggest slice we have yet from no major commitments on. We have a list of things, but they're none of them individually going to lead it completely. So,
At the end of the day, it's a $3.3 million
right.
pie.
This isn't on 11B, that is parks and.
11D is in Delta.
Mr. Chairman, there was nothing magic when we set up this proposed budget. I mean, I remember sitting in this room thinking, well, let's give a little bit more here. Let's take some from here. So I don't have a problem with borrowing from another line.
It was kind of how we just throw this much here and throw this much there and kind of had an idea of what we were doing. I mean, if I remember correct.
It's based on kind of how you valued the different criteria in place. Now, the interim guidance, of course, that's come out since then, essentially all the funds can be dedicated towards public sector loss revenues. But again, we had the discussion on, is that the appropriate use of federal income tax dollars, which, again, I have a biased perspective on trying to make budget work for the next year, and every nickel that we can kind of facilitate towards that is in my preference, but I certainly understand that this is kind of something too that the federal government, when they initiated this type of a bill, was to address issues like this.
I definitely, the broadband is a big concern as far as the county goes. Not having, we have an awful lot of people that come in and stay the weekend and leave. My thoughts are that if you've got the broadband and so many people work remotely now, we could pretty easily draw these people in to stay. And what a better growth, process. I mean, having that broadband is huge as far as I can see. And I understand what we're trying to do also to deal with a budget and go forward with that. But I think this is something that I'm supportive. So see how we go.
Yeah, so we were thinking of using the ARP money to bridge that 1.5 million gap. Is that correct? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm not entirely sure what you're.
Well,
Talking
I don't know,
about
if this ARPA money
Yep.
is not part of our regular budget, it's just for other things, it's not for our we have a 1.5 million gap in our regular budget, right?
Coming into next year, we know
Yeah.
that it's going to be about $1 million shortfall in revenues versus in
Yeah.
expenditures.
So this is not really part of that.
If we don't have funds like this to use as a revenue source against that gap, then the gap remains there and other revenues or other expenditures are going to have to be reduced to try to fill that.
Okay, but we have 335,000 still in public health. And we have for essential workers, 222,000 left, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay, I think everybody's talking about economic development. I think this is the number one thing.
Any more discussion?
Do we have anyone online, listening remotely? Any committee members?
I'll ask for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Guys?
Thank you.
Good.
If we can maybe plan on seeing you in either in person or on WebEx again for our county board meeting on the 15th at 7 o'clock, that would be most excellent.
Thank you.
Start burying cable.
All right. So now we'll move to item number 7, financial planning timeline.
Okay, Mr. Chair, this one is found in your folder, item number 7. Looking today for motion to accept the tentative timeline. The following amended timeline will be used for planning purposes as we continue efforts in completing our long-term financial plan and approach in 2023. The timeline kind of acts more as a checklist with some tentative times on it. Is another Langrick product, which is big and complex and does more confusing than probably helping. But nonetheless, it's kind of drafted out on the major initiatives that we're trying to do, and then the meetings that we have available to try to accomplish them. The first section is the operations order that we talked about, timeline and the deliverables for the long-term budgeting process. Second section then includes the financial planning and development. Third section has the capital maintenance program. You can see we're kind of slowly shifting to the right in the year. Capital below that then is our debt service management for 2023. Essentially our decisions on tower and short-term borrowing and how that's going to impact the 2 sections there. Commitment again to our general fund balance, affirming our 25% commitment to undesignated general fund balance. Committee employee compensations, benefits, benefited time off, discussions that we've kind of already had and that need to be firmed up as we build again our financial plans for the future as well as the 2023 budget. Union negotiations most likely will be limited this year. If we do significant changes in benefited time off, compensations, there may be appropriateness to consider MOUs and addressing those if we have retention and recruitment issues based on our changes in the market. Fund balance, discussion on our existing fund balances and revenue sources that we might have available to us. Health insurance, multiple bridges to cross and health insurance. Operations budget then for 2023. So what we were familiar with last year kind of constitutes bits and pieces of this. It's kind of more bolstered and more elaborate because we're trying to also add in 5 years financial planning and a capital improvement plan. So this is what I would recommend as again, a tentative line. We'll try to hit these dates the best we can, knowing that some of the stuff may be shifted to the right or left, depending on the appropriateness of the topic and how fast we can move along on decision points. But again, it's probably the most value on this is the checklist of making sure that we check these boxes.
I get a motion.
Make the motion.
Dave was a motion. Second.
I'll second for
Marty was
discussion.
a second. Discussion.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Linda.
I'd just like to know about the logistics of the bonding for the tower.
Yes. Yes, in talking with Carol Worth, so it's going to be the same type of a process that we'd have to put in place where we'd have to have an authorization resolution put in place for a 3/4 vote to approve an up to amount. Now, between then though, between that resolution and then doing the actual award resolution for purchase of the bonds and awarding the bonds, then we're going to have to do a bond call process, which essentially is we'll have to all departments, the larger departments on board with delivering financial reports to folks from Moody's on establishing our bond rating level. So it's going to be much more elaborate than our short-term bonding because we're going to have an additional step in there. We'll still have to prepare our official statement, but then we'll have a bond call. So it is going to be extensive, working right now with Mike Day and Carol Worth on establishing timeline on the actual project. From what I understand, the other part of it is the construction piece. We'll have like an 18-month window then to complete construction. So we're trying to firm up then what is actual equipment costs versus contract costs, working through those two subject matter experts to build out a timeline.
Affect our Moody's rating because we're doing that. Bonding is not.
I'm not a bond rater, but with adding another 7 million on our or potentially another 7 million, we don't know. The bids haven't come back yet, but adding that onto our existing debt capacity will certainly lower our rating. How much it's lowered, I don't know, and how much interest rates are at the time that we're actually doing borrow. I don't know what the financial impact of that adjustment in rating is either.
Mr. Chair, since Linda brought up the tower project, I'd like to ask, and I'm sure this has been done, but we have possible all possible avenues have been covered, I would guess. And one of the things, how many towers are we going to put up for that? As I look at the school bus route, I see about 5 new towers that Bug Tussle, I suppose, have put up. I don't see why in heck the county needs any more towers.
Because renting that tower is gonna be costly,
Well,
and it's gonna be an ongoing budgeted cost that you won't be able to borrow for, so you're gonna have to put into your ongoing budget. That's something that you can make room for. I mean, that's the consideration that you have to make, why we might not wanna do that.
that's a good point. Thank you, Barb. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but I would make this observation. A good corporate neighbor should be willing to work with the county since this is such a worthwhile and worthy thing that we're doing. This is not frivolous.
Don't think that that'll be the case.
Well, it's the cost of doing business in the county. I think those people have not been held to that standard.
So can I ask another question?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't know much about these, but when you say that renting is very expensive, are people going to rent on our tower and pay us money?
That's a model that Sauk County has.
It can, I guess at the same time, we don't have a discussion on the radio towers. I think we kind of struck that one. So how far we go off topic on that one might be a concern. But short answer is yes. You can have, what is it, vertical real estate contracts that you can put up.
And Mr. Chairman and Clint, I mean, this isn't etched in stone. That's what we have before us there. This is merely a framework to proceed, and
Yes.
I'm in favor of it, but I still have some nagging questions about this project.
Understood. I do know that when Bug Tussle was wanting to put in towers everywhere, they were more than happy to help the county out. Now, whether that still stands after the towers are up, but I know that whenever that question was brought up, oh yeah, we'd be more than happy. So it's an avenue to go down for sure.
I'd like to get Mr. Bugtussle in this room and ask him.
But sometimes they change their mind after hours are all up. But it's definitely worth going down. All right.
So yes, the schedule again is more of a running checklist on the things that we have to check off. And we'll try our best to meet the timelines we can so that things don't get compressed towards the end, and we have make sure we can give due diligence to each item if we have to sit on it a meeting or a month to be able to allow for further development, to be able to afford those opportunities. This is quite a big undertaking.
So we got a motion and a second. I just, one comment. The time that I've been on the board, this is a great improvement as far as I'm concerned of how we deal with our budget versus maybe when I started. It hasn't been that long. This is, even if it gets a little busy in the spreadsheet, is much easier to go about than what we used to try and do the last minute, I would say. So that's all I got to say about that. Anybody else got any comments or? Not. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say nay. Motion carries. So we're at number 8, Fund 75 appropriation for fair purchase.
Mr. Chair, looking today for motion to approve allocation of funds from 75, the continued light project at the fairgrounds with work to be done by city utilities. And I believe I have Director Doudna on to further elaborate. Carla, are you there?
I'm here, yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions on that or?
I guess the only question I'd have, Carla, did we go through and put the power underground and get all that done when we said we were going to do that? And this is just something else after the fact?
Yes, this is in addition to that work that was done. So all the power lines are underground. This is just going to be repairing and replacing some of the security lighting that's on the ground, which is part of the project. And there'll be a few more items that'll be coming forth for these funds out of Fund 75 after this one as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I need a motion.
Make the motion.
One second.
Dave, Marty? Second. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 10, soliciting scoping proposal for comprehensive ambulance service study.
Mr. Chair, looking today for motion to approve a resolution for the county board to allocate ARPA funds for the purpose of hiring a consultant to study and delivery of emergency medical services in the county. Background of this item is the Joint Ambulance Committee. Administrator Langerkar requesting ARPA funds for the approval to send out an RFP and procure the services of an EMS consultant to review how emergency medical services are currently being delivered in the county. The study will provide invaluable information to the Joint Ambulance Committee, the county administrator, and the county board, and will aid in future planning decisions about the delivery of pre-hospital care in Richland County. In your packet, then you'll also see the actual draft proposal of the RFP. I can get it to pull up. And again, so the two intentions that I have with the document, and there's multiple other things that we can accomplish with it, but it's kind of assessing, first off, what's kind of the best service for the community as a whole, for the county as a whole, consideration for delivery of care and for taxpayers and the dollar impacting for the citizens. The second part that I have envisioned with this is what it would look like then for, does that care stay underneath a county umbrella, or is that care delivered then outside as a separate ambulance district? So that's kind of my mindset on approaching this type of an issue. We know that we have a new ambulance garage now. Let's take a look and assess comprehensively what's the best way to deliver service. Then the second variable on, is that something we continue to do in-house versus then outside on their own. And I would also then defer to Director Gudgeon, who's online, that might be able to better kind of walk through the details on the proposal here, as well as the additional information that we feel that we can pull from this study. Director Gudgeon, are you on?
Yes, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
All right. So at the, with input from the Joint Ambulance Committee and conversations with Director Langrick, I drafted this scoping document for your consideration. And just some, some background to this. I think many of you have probably heard through different, sources, contacts that, healthcare and even especially EMS is in a position where change is, inevitable. The system started in 1968 and it was pretty much volunteers throughout the state of Wisconsin, and has the scope of practice, increased, and as the expectations from the public and the demand from the public and all that has changed over the years, the delivery model continues for the most part to remain the same in Wisconsin, and that is primarily that of a volunteer type of basis. But as communities change, demographics change, whether it's in population or age, those have an effect on how effective this can be delivered. And so this document was drafted in order to for us to procure the services of a consultant that specializes in this area, to kind of help us look at what is the current state of pre-hospital care delivery in Richland County. What are some options moving forward that would be sustainable, both financially and operationally, and how we can, meet some of the challenges in the future, and when it comes to delivery of care. And so, looking at the county as a whole, we have 1, 2, 3 ambulance services to the north that provide coverage in Richland County. We have 3 ambulance services in the southern border that provide ambulance service in Richland County. And then, of course, you have the Richland County Ambulance Service, which is the highest call volume in the greatest area to cover. And we're all vying for the same thing, people and dollars. And so hopefully this comprehensive study, the results of it, will not only aid in the 2 top priorities that Administrator Langrick proposed, but it will also give the entire county and the decision makers, whether it be townships, villages, the city, or the county as a whole, a tool to look at and assess the model that is in place right now, that's been in place since the early 1970s, versus models of delivery that could be deployed that would be much more efficient, and provide, I don't want to say better care, because that would seem to send a negative connotation to anybody that provides care, but just more efficient and giving the taxpayer high quality service, and still minimizing the direct impact to each taxpayer's dollars. From a 10,000 foot view, when you have 7 ambulance services and approximately 13 ambulances covering a county our size, my own opinion is that necessarily efficient? And I don't mean that disrespectfully to anybody. I think all of the ambulance services that provide care do it at a high level and do it with a high regard to the citizens that they serve. But at the same time, is it necessarily the best model? So this document will be sent out. I talked to Chief Donaldson, who is the president of the Wisconsin EMS Association and also the service director for Waushara County EMS, a county-run service, and had a lot of input and good conversations with him. And I appreciate Administrator Langrick making that connection between the 2 of us. It was good for me to have those conversations with him and kind of tap into his expertise. So with his help, we identified 4 entities three in Wisconsin, one outside the state of Wisconsin, that specializes in these types of studies. So if this is approved, then the goal would be to solicit this scoping document, this RFP, to those entities for them to return a packet that would tell us, their credentials and the cost, because that's one thing we don't know. We don't know how much a study like this is going to cost. But the deliverable, I think, will be invaluable as this body moves forward in making decisions, but also the other municipalities in the county as they move forward and make decisions on how EMS is provided.
All right. Yeah, go ahead. Let's say, yes, I look at where the ambulances come from. I've been on that board for some time now. It's at the township level and started out with next to nothing and it's turned into something pretty good. So I guess I am in support of trying to make it better. That means looking at it from another set of eyes to look at it to see what makes most efficiency and see how we can do better. All for that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a study won't do any good unless all of these other entities buy into it. Not that we need change, but at least they'll look at it. We've got a representative here from Casanova, one of the largest. I don't know, Mr. Even, are you prepared to comment on this, or can I call upon you? No. All right, that handles it. But you've heard about it. It's the first you've heard about it. Well, I would suggest that all of these other entities be brought into the fold then, or this isn't going to go anywhere.
If I could, Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, just to kind of respond to Marty's concerns, the study is going to be a tool for all the entities to use, and I'm hoping that as it's going forward, it's going to provide all the service directors and the community and the county information on, just invaluable information. And it's certainly not meant to, as a tool to say, this is how the Richland County Ambulance Service is going to take over, the county. So I don't want that message to be put out there. But I do think as the county board moves forward with talks on a county-run system versus a district, those discussions will have an impact on all the other services around us. And so they'll certainly be involved in this. I would assume and request that any consultant that comes in has a conversation with those service directors as well. If we really want a comprehensive study, we will need the input from all 7 ambulance services, and potentially the 3 first responder services that we all work with that provide care prior to us arriving and providing advanced care and transport. So to your point, Mr. Brewer, I agree. They certainly need to be involved in this, and I don't want any negative connotation be sent out there. We're all in the same boat, and I'm hoping that this study provides all ambulance services valuable information that we need in order to plan for future. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Anyone else?
I
Yeah,
guess
Linda?
I'm confused. You mean we're going ahead with this and we haven't contacted all of them to have them be a part of it, because they have to be able to share their knowledge with this person, and I think it's hard to ask somebody to come in here if we haven't got sort of our ducks in line, be all looking at it and seeing what would be best for everyone.
If I can comment to that, we don't have anybody lined up. The whole point of the document is to bring in that consultant that can reach out comprehensively across the county and the ambulance districts to begin the conversation on our behalf and to understand the different factors that we had talked about with the delivery of service and do existing models work, and all those types of questions to sift out. So that's kind of the whole point and premise of trying to bring a RFP and a consultant on, is to begin generating that conversation.
Mr. Chair, I think we've made a tactical error here now in not bringing them all in. Maybe it's not too late, but we must do that. I know Darren Gudgeon is the emergency government director for the whole county. So in his role, he's representing the whole county, and he wants to study the issue, like you said, from a 10,000 altitude level, look at the whole thing as one. I understand that, but the problem is, if I'm running an ambulance service in, let's say, Yuba, I'm proud of my ambulance service. We do a good job, and I've got volunteers, and part of my promise to my volunteers is that, yeah, we're going to be autonomous. We're going to run alone. And Mark, you've been involved in this for a long time on that committee. So you've got to bring in the rest of these people, or it's going to be dead in the water. Whatever recommendation this consultant comes up with, and I would imagine that the recommendations, oh, well, you've got duplication of effort, and you've got to consolidate and eliminate and do this and do that. It's not going to go anywhere unless we get buy-in from the outset. So I don't know how we accomplish that, but that is the way I see it.
And I would agree with you, Marty, that everybody has to be involved to some degree, for sure. The thing that I guess my envision of what this was is, okay, let's get it approved so we can do it, and then you get the people involved as you go forward. And maybe I'm wrong in thinking that, but that's kind of what my thought was on it.
That's what it is here. The project scope is kind of laid out here. We're looking for a comprehensive overview on ambulance services are currently being provided, financed in Richland County, including assessment of the full costs as described by Sustainable Rural EMS. The second one is the reliability and sustainability of the current EMS system, county-run ambulance versus forming an ambulance district, feasibility, benefits, and drawbacks of a county-wide EMS system. So again, feasibility, benefits, and drawbacks of a county-wide EMS system, interfacility transports, upgrade to paramedic levels. Those are the kind of things that we're looking to gain a better understanding on, and again, in context of county as a community more than an organizational situation. And my push on this again is, in a few months, I'm going to be approaching you folks with, we've got this much money. These are the options on the table, trying to explore one of them to understand by study kind of capacity on what that looks like, and certainly help us on trying to understand whether or not we can continue funding operations like this out of county coffers, or if it needs to be diverted to other funding types of mechanisms. Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
At this point, if I'm reading this right, we're not spending any money yet. We're not doing it. We're just merely going out to seek the proposals and see what this would cost. We're not even starting the process yet.
Yes.
So, approving this at this stage is going to get that ball rolling. And then I believe Mr. Brewer is correct. We need to, at that point, start engaging with the other ambulance services and say, okay, this is coming. We want your participation because we're looking at the whole county. And it explicitly says in the proposal here that they're looking at a solution for what's good for the whole county. Not that one is better than another, or one particular area. So to me, that would seem that we could go out, find out what it's going to cost first, and then also be reaching out to our partners at that point to say, hey, we're looking at this study that we hope will give information that's good for all of us to use.
I would agree.
Yeah, the county isn't going to have any types of autonomy to dissolve existing ambulance districts or anything of that nature by any means. And again, with the reason that we're bringing this forward is because we'd be using ARPA money for it. The reason that we feel it's important to do it as a resolution is to have this conversation so the county board understands as well, because there are so many partners involved, whether it's townships or the ambulance districts or even folks outside of the county borders on the fringes that those districts serve as well. Other questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're talking about using ARPA funds, but that would have to come back as another approval because we don't know an amount yet or anything like that, correct?
No, we're not. We don't know on how much it's going to cost until the actual bids then were to come in for it.
So basically what we're doing is saying, can we go and do this? Can we entertain somebody to do this work and tell us how much it's gonna cost? And then the next level of it goes to, okay, all the outliers, all the, the other ambulance services in the area, now we can have a conversation, say, okay, we want to do this. We want you to be a part of this, just if nothing else for knowledge. Now, that's kind of where it's going, is my understanding.
It's the intent, and that's kind of why we're here. It's going to come at a dollar amount to the county, and it touches on, say, a sensitive item, but an item that there's a lot of different vested interests in it. So that's why we're bringing it forward to you folks before even releasing the request for proposal and taking it to the county board to say, yes, this could become a hot button topic, and folks might have emotional kind of concerns that they have along with it, and that's all good. It's good to have those, but looking to have your buy-in on the front end to say this is a worthwhile cause before we continue to invest more administrative time in trying to solve this on our own.
I go ahead. Go ahead.
I understand the reason and what's happening. I think if we pass this and it goes out on WRCO and the news, I think there'll be a complete backlash for this, that we haven't gone out and already just contacted people, that this is a study that we would like to put forth. I think we're just we're not working in our community well.
All right. Well,
I appreciate the fact, Clint and Darren, that you reached out to the gentleman. Where was he from?
We would have, I'm not sure if you were in that, that
Yeah,
one session, but this
Counties
was up in La Crosse at the
Association.
Counties Association.
Can't remember, but he was excellent, and in my summary, I suggested that we talk to him, so you too. That was good.
so I guess the only other thing, when you're going to do a study, I look at it. Now, this one has a lot more players that are probably involved in it, but we just approved a study for broadband a month ago or 2 months ago. This to me is along the same line. Now, I understand, believe me, with being on that board, I understand exactly the passion that is involved with EMS, and there's plenty of it, that's for sure. And everybody has, they want their own thing in their own way, but I think that we can explain the purpose of this well enough, and what this is a study to try to see, how can the Richland County ambulance is it in the right place? And can the other districts help with that? I think at the end of the day, or how can we help each other? So, I guess I'm for this. But we need to vote, so.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm the county treasurer, Jeff Even. I'm also the service director for Casanova EMS. So on the forefront, after hearing the explanations, it makes more sense as a neighboring service director. I don't think there's any volunteer EMS director in the state that will tell you that volunteer EMS is certainly a struggle right now, and that in the future, there will need to be changes and adjustments. I don't know what the timeline is for all of this, but I don't know that putting it off another month to even start the conversation would be beneficial. I think as long as Mr. Gudgeon and everybody involved is as transparent as possible with all of the neighboring partners, I don't think that there is going to be substantial damage. But you're right, there is a lot of emotion involved just with the public and the partners involved. So I think just to get the idea out there, as a neighboring service, I don't see any issue with that, but I think staying informed and involved along the way definitely is going to be a crucial part of this.
I guess the only other thing I would say is, Darren, if this does get approved today to go forward, I would have you reach out to everybody and explain what it is that we approve, so that at least your directors in your area can go back to their groups and explain what the goal is here.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't, I understand that has to be a part of the project, because this isn't the study isn't meant to be anything other than a tool of information given to all 7 service directors who are battling the same issues. And there might be some things out of there that all of us can glean. Maybe there's partnerships that we have not established that we could establish, whether it be buying power, whether it be cross-credentialing providers. It's certainly not meant to damage the autonomy of any service. And I'll immediately start working on that right now, even before it goes to county board. When I return to the office on Thursday, just reaching out to each service director, one-on-one, and then maybe we can even, potentially set up a meeting with all of them, because this isn't meant to do anything other than, provide a tool of information, like I said, to all 7 of us. And I would, include the EMR, the emergency medical responder groups in that as well. They have to be partners, and it's not meant to be, just one-sided or anything like that. So absolutely, I'll start working on that when I return, because I do want this to be a positive for all of us. And I say all of us, meaning all of the ambulance services in the county.
You, Darren?
So on our motion, can we have that be part of the motion? Because even though I trust Darren's gonna do it, it's sort of like we just talked about Bug Tussle. We just made, oh yeah, we'll do it. We need to say that we really want to work with the partners before we pass this, so that it's understood that we're wanting the whole community to be involved in the study.
Agree.
Thought we had a motion.
I thought we did too, but evidently we didn't. So we need a motion to, we probably should have had a motion before we did all the discussion. So I'll make the motion, and what we have here, I mean, to approve the resolution for the county board to allocate our funds for purpose of hiring a consultant to study and deliver of emergency medical services in the county, with the addition that Darren will reach out to all of the ambulance services in the county and their surrounding county to make them aware of what the purpose of this is. Is that what everybody's thinking? All right. A second?
Second.
Are you a second? Any more discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Try to do a better job getting that motion. I did too.
Good.
All right, we're going to financial reports. First one's the treasurer's report, cash balance.
Get it pulled up here for you. As provided by Treasurer Even. Numbers on here, does this look right, Jeff? Yes, is there any request for an explanation, or if you had any questions with this one?
Well, our running average is lower. Why is that? Have an explanation? Or?
For which one are you looking at? The checking, the?
The bottom line here, the
Correct.
checking balance, yeah.
Hey, so you have a list of contact information.
Aaron, thank you.
Our running average for a year. Our running average is going to be slightly lower for the month of January, because I did move some money out into our savings account, because we're only insured. We only have collateral for $2 million in our checking account. My cash balance on our side said we had below that, but if you look at the bank, you know, all of our outstanding checks, we were well above $2 million. So on the paper here, it appears we have less money, but that was because I moved more out due to timing differences.
So then you see the offset in a higher amount, then it shows up then essentially in the LGIP. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Jeff.
Our goal is to keep I call it a cash reserve equal to 3 months operating. Have we made it? Right track?
Operating expenses, well, it's based on our general fund operations, but our total operational expenses is about 36 million.
And that really is going to depend on the month of the year as well, as far as expenditures go, but I can look into that more and give you a better answer on that, Marty.
If we look at our total available cash, there's been a steady uptrend in that third chart from 2017 onward. In fact, we're 2.5 times what we had on hand in 2017 right now.
The long term, certainly on a trend line, that's what we are focused on, because we do have some short term impacts. I believe we have to, we haven't issued out our payments yet for our debt service. Did we push out principal interest?
Those went out today.
And that was 3.2 million.
I would agree. If you look at over the past 4 or 5 years, I mean, once you get into the LG and you get into the cash balance, I mean, trend is definitely where you want it to be. And when you're looking at a yearly versus a monthly, because a month can get too crazy, I understand that. Say we're going in the right direction.
We are, in context also that, of course, inflationary factors and expenditures continue to kind of creep up, though, so our month in reserves that we'll have to have available will also go up.
Any other question?
So any checks the county writes are gonna be good. Glad to hear that.
All right. 175 capital borrowing.
Tracker is on here. Again, this is our Fund 75 additions on this from last month. As you'll see, we added the spend by date. March 5th, 2023 is the no later than for having these spent out, because again, these were non-taxable, which then gave us a 3-year window to expend these. A remaining balance of 589,000 still to expend out. You can see the balances in there by the approved amount. Would defer to any questions that you might have.
Are there any concerns that we won't spend that money on any of these?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is primarily the $1 million that we borrow. Or is some of it still left over?
This is the, I can answer that, Mr. Chair. This is the 2.9 million from 2019, I think, and received in 2020.
Okay.
A big piece is kind of on the chart yet here, our land conservation. Now I know that they were in here a few months ago with requesting to move forward with some ancillary dams, I think, that are meant to be put in to chip away at that 97,000. Other pieces that are on there is fairgrounds, which Carla is tracking, in which there's actions as well. Simon's Center is on here, but that has to be with completion. Once we complete payments 6 and 7 of the roofing, that will be dissolved out, because that 65,000 is towards the roof, so we're just waiting for the billing to be complete. The other types of items and such that we'll have, probably be giving a last call here in the next couple months to departments on ensuring that these are earmarked and that we can expend them out as designed, or to reallocate those towards other types of expenses that are hanging out there, including a new roof for the courthouse, other types of projects that still fit within the resolution language for the intentions of the borrowing.
Any other questions? If not, we'll go to Fund 92, short-term borrowing.
So this is our Fund 92, and this is for our 2021 borrowing. We're almost there, 137,000 remaining. And this will be one we'll probably issue here shortly, a last call. Then remaining funds will be allocated again towards a roof project or some other type of project that fits within the context of the resolution language. And part of this as well is already kind of allocated towards the roof project. You see like the courthouse line there with the 86,000.
That's what you're planning on using that for?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go
I would like to comment that sorry, I got the two funds confused, but now I'm on the right track. It's awful handy to have this. It's $1 million that we pay it off quickly. It's not a lingering debt. However, borrow $9 million for the towers, we're not going to have this. Be aware of that. Well, because I don't think we want to borrow that much, you know.
Well, I mean, Mr.
Go ahead.
And this isn't just, I don't want to get too deep into it, but the tower is long-term borrowing. This is annual. This is every year. It's two different categories. Yes, they're both borrowing. You're correct about that, but it's two different animals.
I would say certainly legally, they're two different entities and how they impact. From a context of wanting to impose the minimum amount of increase on a millage rate, then that would hold true. At the same time, in talking with other different counties, example, Iowa County, I think they do a little over 2 million in a short-term type of a borrowing capacity. Now, their situation being different, where they don't want to say they don't have a bonding out there, but their last bonding that they did with their new jailhouse, it was implemented at the same time that they were coming out from existing debt obligation with a nursing home, so it didn't impact they maintained the same mill rate. And they started, like many other counties, kind of in doing that short-term borrowing practice years ago, where it slowly impacted and was experienced, where we kind of jumped in at a $1 million level right away. That certainly was felt at $100 on a $100,000 property. So
It's worked well, but it did, when we first implemented the $1 million, it was an immediate jump in the millage. People noticed it. I think it was a 19% increase in the county's portion. So it's true. If that's wrong, you can correct.
I think that impacted at the same time that the 2.9
Yeah.
borrowing impacted your tax.
Yeah, it was a huge. But I have a tendency to agree with, or to go along with Dave. I mean, they're two totally different things. And the thing that this has done is it's made it so that we can take the capital expenditures out of that operating budget. And if we go back the other way, I have a lot of fear that we'll go back to not fixing anything. Be my only, that's the fear. I'm not to say what's right or what's wrong, but we all know where we stand with money, and this has been a great tool, and I can see where that going forward still going to be needed as a tool.
I would just comment, if we do it every year, it's long-term debt.
Understood.
Can I ask a little question? Maybe I misread something. Didn't we have a negative 43,000 somewhere in the sheriff's department back there, and now we have a plus 40? Or did I misread that on
Those
it?
were the two different.
Those are two different.
Was the 2.9, which was negative.
Yes. Yep, it was an overage on that piece of pie again, which we'll have to reapportion out then from somebody else's slice. Yep.
All right,
Nope, that was a good catch.
any other questions? Not, we'll go to Fund 93, ARPA funds.
And I'd like to thank County Supervisor Tammy Wheelock, of course, for putting these together for us again today. This one we looked at briefly earlier today now. We can visualize if in fact your resolution does carry, we'll have to adjust the water sewer broadband infrastructure to accommodate another $590,000 in that line, as well as if the resolution were to carry and we get bids back on your ambulance garage, not knowing really what that project looks like because I don't think many of them have been done in the state for reference. That'll also have to then fit underneath here as an appropriation.
Any questions? All right, child care and education grant monitoring.
We have tracking now. Like we talked about, our funds have been pushed out, so we do have fund or the current balances are being monitored on expenditures that we're actually getting proof and receipts back, if I'm saying that right, Cheryl, on the different expenditures based on what was put out to them, and the remaining funds that they still have in their possession to utilize. Bethlehem, Grant, Ithaca, Wagner are all in there. You can pull them all up if you want to look them on the screen, or if you just want to reference them on your iPads.
I got it.
We have right now we're tracking with Wagner Walsh that there's only 467 currently utilized.
We have a timeline for that. I should have known that, but I forgot.
It's the ARPA expend date, which I don't have written down at December 31st. By that's what we had for their award. Okay. By December 31st, have it expended. Thank you, Cheryl.
Of this year.
Correct.
All right, any more questions on those? No, we'll go to budget performance summary.
The budget performance summary is in here. As we talked about last time, we adjusted it slightly to still capture then the different main fund account numbers. And then we added in the addition then of the department in which it is assigned. Again, it's a very broad picture. Main things trying to glean is kind of the remaining balance, tracking where we're at with our budget performance.
Any questions? Lot to look at here, so I understand if you don't have any questions. Just go ahead, Dave.
Was something amiss with our budgeting for property and liability insurance? It seems like our budgeted amount missed the actual.
Good question.
I'm sorry, which line was that?
It's, property and liability insurance, it was budgeted at 24,850, but the actual came in at over 90,000. Is that, I see it's under a county clerk line. Is that something that then gets allocated out to various departments? Or?
Some of them do. Example like campus, then there's about 20,000 that'll be a journal entry. Then that would be transferred over to that.
So it's not that all 90 was for clerk. It's just it hasn't been portioned out yet.
Correct. The other impacts then too are we do have an additional building with adding an ambulance garage onto it. I'd have to research and report on that if you desire.
Just curious in general. Don't need necessarily know the details.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions?
I think before, I don't know how this committee structure is gonna be in April, but I think it'd be good to have a paper copy of this at the April date.
I don't see any reason why we couldn't have it. Especially once we figure out what. Then you can look.
Mr. Chair, to
Yes.
echo comments you made earlier about progress we're making on these budget processes, this is good.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, and Marty and Linda, hopefully. This is different than what you're used to seeing.
Great.
That's very good.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions on that, we'll move to number 12, Barracuda, Essential Security Edition, Web Security Gateway and Message Archiver Software.
Looking today for a motion to purchase Barracuda Essential Security Edition, Web Security Gateway, and Message Archiver software from JComp Technologies. Background on this is Richland County uses Barracuda subscription services for our security gateway, encryption, email, and email archiver. We must pay the use for these services each year. The cost for this can come out of centralized or departments. At this point, recommend that this be placed against fund level number 11, our contingency fund. Then in the future, though, as we move into 2023, that we designate this as a centralized expense under what will be the Fund 42 County Tech Fund. Total for these services for the next year is $20,040, again against Fund 11, and then recommending that future we use a Fund 42 centralized expense for these. So we continue to try to track and monitor and where does this go and all these things with our tech budget, which will be a kind of a centerpiece in our financial planning. Director Scott, if there's any other comments that need to be made, by all means.
All right, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Marty with a motion, a second.
I'll second.
Dave with a second. Any more discussion? I guess the only thing I would say is I assume it goes up every year. Hopefully not very much, but everything else does. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Going to item number 13. Establish salaries for elected official terms, sheriff, clerk of court, coroner.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to approve status change for fair judges from county employees to independent contractors. Approve fair judges to be paid via audit, so checks can be issued prior to judging. Approve new fair judge pay scale as presented. Director Doudna is on for additional information on the background.
Are we on the wrong one? I was on 13.
Oh, am I sorry? Did I miss one? Oh, I did. Okay, apologize
In the
here.
corner?
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's all
Sorry.
right.
Yeah.
Nope,
I was
nope.
looking at it and go, well, I don't see anything about fair here, but
I get my threes
all
and
right.
fours messed up. So
good.
apologize. Looking today for motion to recommend the 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026 salaries for the sheriff, clerk of court, coroner to be presented by resolution of the county board for consideration as presented today or as amended by yourselves. Background on this item is the offices of sheriff, clerk, circuit court, and coroner are up for election this fall for a new 4-year term. State law provides that salaries for these offices cannot be changed after the first day of taking out nomination papers. Although it is legal for the county board to build in an annual percentage or dollar salary adjustment for these offices as long as it's done before the first day before taking out circulating nomination papers, which to the best of my knowledge is the 15th of April, meaning that we have to have this through county board this month. So it's established prior to nomination papers being taken out. With consideration for historic actions of fellow Wisconsin counties, attachments were provided in your folder. Anticipated actions of fellow counties from the data we got back. Historic compensation actions by Richland County, as we've previously discussed and taken action on. And then my proposals for future compensation actions for Richland County, which will arrive to you in April, making the following recommendations for the sheriff, for the clerk of circuit court, and for the coroner. Essentially for the sheriff, clerk of circuit court, and full-time employees, recommending a 7%, 4%, and 3% salary increases from their existing salaries. For the coroner, increase of a salary of $50 per month. for the per calls, it's a 95 for a call, a 25 for a cremation only, and then a 120 for a call plus cremation. And again, the reasoning on this is kind of in context of what we plan on doing with, what I'm going to plan on proposing with our employees. So you folks are aware, it's not going to be fun conversations on how we're going to continue to meet our obligations or our previous commitments on meeting the Carlson schedule and getting up to a market value. Is now compounded by the fact that we have some significant inflation issues that are happening in market values as well. Current number right now for the Wisconsin Employee Relations Commissions for renewing contracts is a number of about a 5% consumer price index for a cost of living increase or a reduction in consumption power, depending on how you view it. And so these numbers of a 7, 7, 4, and 3 are probably what I'm anticipating for financial planning as we approach the fall with employee compensations as well. So that is what I have to say today. I think the sheriff may be on. Clerk of Court's vice is also here today, Mr. Chair.
I guess we need a motion so that we can have some discussion. Get a motion? Dave with a motion, and a second.
Second.
Marty with a second. All right, discussion. Got anything? Quiet. Nobody wants to talk about it.
I think it's better than we've been doing.
I would agree.
Should be, but it's better than we have been.
Definitely, and I guess we all know where we stand with wages and what we're trying to do to make sure we get them right. So this is a good proposal.
Is that an increase in the corner? I don't remember that one.
It is. The question was, is an increase for the coroner. So the current resolution has a $500 per month. So this is a $50 per month or a $600 total increase for the year. Essentially a 10% coroner pay in kind of relationship to some other counties. It kind of lingers a little bit behind for where other folks are. And then also the other change for this based on the last resolution is that I believe we had the language in the last resolution didn't quite meet the expectation from the previous one from 2014. So it was $95 per call. And then I believe it was 200 or 150 or 110 maybe for a call plus cremation. So it was kind of a $10 less than was intended the previous. So this restores back to the mindset of $95 for call, $25 for cremation only, and $120 for a call plus cremation.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll go for a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go to item number 14, contracting fair judges, fair and recycling.
And today then looking for a motion to approve the status change for the fair judges and the other bits that you heard my nasally voice iterate earlier. I will defer to Carla Doudna, if Director Doudna, if you're still on, to further explain.
I am. So currently we pay our judges as county employees. And although they don't go through all the steps that a regular county employee would, that's how we have them set up previously. So I've contacted the Department of Workforce Development, and they deem that our county fair judges meet the criteria for independent contractors versus an employee like the surrounding counties and the majority of them within the state of Wisconsin. So I would like to ask your permission to change that status from county employee to independent contractor, where we have a flat rate, which we have right now. It's all still worked into our budget at the current rate. It'll actually be a little bit cheaper changing it to how I have it submitted today. so that their checks are issued prior to their arrival and they're paid before they leave the fairgrounds versus waiting 6 weeks for payment as they are right now, set up as a monthly employee of the county.
Can I get a motion?
Makes sense. I move for approval.
Any other motion?
I'll second it.
Go to the second. Discussion. Any concerns, questions, comments?
I can bring forward, there's maybe two liability type of concerns. If something were to happen to these folks as a contract, our workers' comp would not be able to cover them as our own employees. The other point of it too is that if they were to file in the next 18 months or their window for unemployment, if we move them to contract, they still could be entitled to some portion of unemployment insurance, and we'd have to reverse that individual back to being an employee to pay them employment insurance. So there's some small ancillary impacts and some liabilities we'd have to kind of ensure, like with our other contractors, ensure that they're liable for their own injuries and such. But at the same time, then it frees us from not soliciting out how many W-2s and other things that go with employment.
I can't imagine the unemployment risk is $127. You're not gonna, I wouldn't.
No, it's more of an administrative burden than a
Yeah.
financial burden on that end.
So, wait, are you saying you want them to have proof of insurance?
If they were to get hurt
That's
as a contractor, they wouldn't have access to our workers' comp to claim for
You're
workers'
asking for
compensation.
proof of insurance? No.
It would, if you wanted to ensure that they had, like any other type of contractor that we'd have, we'd ask for proof of workers' comp and liability and those types of things. Would we do that? Probably not. The risk of them getting hurt is probably minimal, but it is still a liability that's out there. So I don't,
So we do have some liability insurance.
we have property and liability insurance.
Well, I would assume that the differences would be no different than a person who's at the fair that got a contractor role versus as being a judge. I mean, that's the way I would look at that, is if someone else got hurt at the fair, go down that route instead of messing with our work comp and everything. All right, any more discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Carl. Administrators report.
A couple items here today. Apologize that I really didn't have a whole lot of time to break down the brevity on the legislative session, but first one being the Wisconsin legislative session. This was back in January. Major notes to report on actionable information. So one of the items that was brought up as a maybe solution is myself is to further research emergency medical services exceptions from the levy limits to potentially apply to ambulance services and 911 dispatch. And what this is we have our levy restrictions, and then you have these other exceptions that bridges and other types of things that don't go against your actual levy limits. There is a one for medical services exemptions, and it's not defined very well in the statute, so it's going to be homework with Wisconsin Department of Revenues and see if that's a potential option again for working underneath that levy limit ceiling. If it were an option to us, it still, though, it comes as a further tax base impact, but it would help us to stay underneath our levy limit ceiling. Second item is to investigate. Wisconsin Counties Association had several different presentations that kind of alluded towards initiatives of trying to push more towards local governments being allowed to impose more sales tax as a revenue service, and then put that in comparison with other states that actually have significant lower property tax at a local level than we have. My concerns with that are, well, we know we have a lot of different homes that are second homes in the county, so if we're lowering property tax and then we're anticipating sales tax to try to make up for that, do we actually have the people here engaging in the economy to make those up? And I don't have an answer to that. The contrary argument to that is, well, if they're not here all the time, then they shouldn't need those same types of services, which it's the devil advocates to it. But it's something that I'm hoping to try to find some type of a study information where we can try to pin that down and have an understanding. So if it becomes a push from Wisconsin Counties Association, we can kind of firmly say if it's a good thing for Richland County or a bad thing in context of revenues. The other item that came up that I found was actionable was future concerns for electric cars. It'll lead to a reduction in gas, which is good, but most of our roads at a state level and money comes down is kind of hinged on a gas tax. Gas tax is seen as kind of a user fee in light of not having tolls set up everywhere. So if we have a reduction in gas tax, reduction in revenues, how are we going to keep up in the future with our roads? Which is why you'll see more initiatives now for higher registrations in other states on electric vehicles or different mechanisms to try to make up for that revenue loss. So it's going to be a consideration that we have. Another consideration point was walking quorum may exist if a majority of a minimum quorum is in discussion, meaning that if you have a committee of 5, 3 would be your minimum query. Majority of those two, of that 3 would be 2 people. So if 2 people were discussing any one type of a topic outside of a committee, it potentially could be a open meetings violation of a quorum type of a thing. And we talked and everybody had the same response on, well, you can't talk about anything. And really what Attorney Phillips kind of said is anytime you're talking about things as one thing, if you're trying to arrive at what a person's vote is going to be or trying to sway that vote is probably more where you're getting into hot water in any type of conversations where you're feeling you're having with another supervisor that this is really probably getting into trying to sway a decision or identify a vote is probably best held or repeated in open meetings to make sure that it's considered and such.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
About the electrical cars, I I know I have to pay more for having a hybrid car, but at the city, at the Woodman Senior Center, there's an electrical hookup there. Do people pay to use that? And could the county be putting in more electrical different places and people would be paying for that as they travel? Because I know they have maps. Or is that?
There's a bill, and I don't know, I haven't followed it in the last week and a half, but there's legislation at the state level where there's, the bill is actually trying to allow gas station convenience stores to act as a utility and to be able to sell electricity. To actually be able to sell it on the grid, because you have to be a utility to be able to sell energy like that, is how it was described to me. The same bill, though, also had a section in which they were trying to eliminate public entities from offering and being able to have their own charging stations. And I lost track on that, and I missed the meeting this Monday with the Wisconsin Counties Association to see where that one has arrived. But to get to your point, I think as of right now, yes, we can put up charging stations. Can we charge money for usage? I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know there's legislation out there that's trying to stop us from doing both of those. UW Extension, there was a rural economic development, not a whole lot of real actionable type of information. It was very informative. It kind of talked again on a lot of trends that we already know about. We have reduced populations in rural areas. We have less people being born, birth rates versus death rates, as well as our overall average ages are creeping up as we have an aged, more experienced population living here versus youngers. The one element that was there was, whatever your flavor is, there's all different things of interest, but one that kind of stood out to me was the Corey initiative, which is the Center for Rural Initiatives. And this is kind of the same overall federal kind of program that put in like the rural incubation down in Platteville. So we already have this federal kind of program is in our region. We have an incubator in Platteville that helps with startups, specifically in trying to get more tech startups. So there is a resource there as well for looking out on how to get tech startups, what the the things that they need and how you can support that as a local government. And it kind of showed a real nice graphic of kind of like a pyramid, if you will, on while they're doing their startup things here, merged together. And it was informative. And see if I can find that one graphic and bring that back to you folks. Shared revenue update. I don't have anything today. Legislative listening session. Both Supervisor Gentis and Supervisor or Chair Brewer were there out at Boaz last Monday, I believe. And then we also had representing Supervisor Manning, as that was his district. Wisconsin Counties Association training. The question was asked on this if there was going to be a cows or a new supervisor workshop. And to the best of my knowledge, and a representative Sarah got back and said that there in fact is going to be, and they plan on having a session in Richland Center tentatively scheduled for May 16th. But don't hold me to that date as it may shift. They'd also have the availability if we want specific training, we can reach out to Sarah as well. And then our retention report we talked about, currently centered right now for May 16th is what they tentatively have planned. Sorry, yep, May 16th. And then retention report, we had some discussion on the different stats and statistics and ratios that we wanted to further investigate, and that'll also come back to you at a later date. Mr. Chair.
So we need a motion. This report. Marty with the motion.
I'll second it.
Linda with the second. Any further discussion?
You feel that the WCA legislative session was worthwhile?
There were some bigger items there that you're talking at a state level, so not a lot of it was maybe actionable, but it kind of helps you get a mindset of posturing, like an example of the roads, how we're going to do with that, and other pieces that you're maybe in favor of, maybe not. It's a good network opportunity. Again, I think in the future, what I envision is I'd recommend that myself probably attending a legislative type session and bringing information back, and then supervisors attending the conference in the fall is what I see as the best benefit.
I'd like to see us establish a schedule perhaps of attending that fall session. Because they're wonderful. They're just really invigorates you. You come back to your county with a lot of new ideas, so very, very worthwhile.
No, I'm going back on the agenda, but May 16th, when they're coming here to our county, or is that going to be virtual?
Oh, that was Richland Center.
Yep, that was the tentative schedule.
Like they used to do it.
Yes, yep, that was what she mentioned. She said, don't hold me to the date, but that's what they had planning as of right now.
Hopefully, our facility locally will be straightened out by then. And availability of food, if we have it there.
Maybe, yeah. I'll let Wisconsin Counties Association know.
All right. Anybody else got anything? Comments? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, all right. Well, we're at number 16. Future agenda items. Linda, do you have any future agenda items?
No, we're doing well with broadband, so I'm not asking for that again.
All right, Dave?
Nothing in addition.
Marty? I don't have anything either.
I have a lot. I'll show up on next month's, Mr. Chair.
On next month.
We're gonna meet on the 18th, right?
Yes, we're scheduled right now for the 18th at 1 o'clock, I believe.
I might be back for that. We're going to Arizona the first part of the week, but we get back at like something, so see how often.
You'll have green beer on the plane.
Well, you can always hope. All right, in the motion to adjourn.
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hey. Yes. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to congratulate you once again on meeting along.